All right, what is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Mets Weekly Podcast as we are live at this very moment on YouTube and on X to recap the Mets versus Phillies series, as well as all the latest news and rumors in New York Mets land. But before we get into that, I want to remind everyone to subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel for new episodes of our show that are recorded live after every single series of games during the regular season. For those of you watching or listening on playback, you want to join the conversation in the future, make sure to turn on those post notifications to know when we go live. For those of you in the live chat right now, we love reading your comments, your questions, your concerns, all that great stuff. And if you feel like you're being ignored, you're not being ignored. You're just being starred throughout the show. We'll try to keep the flow of the conversation going. Make sure to follow Mets Weekly on X and on TikTok for my co-host Frank's instant post-game reactions after every single regular season game, which are titled the Mets Frankly Postgame. For our audio listeners, make sure to follow us on all of your favorite listening platforms to not miss the audio version of new episodes that go up at 9 a.m. the following day. Also, make sure to give us a 5-star review. It would be greatly appreciated. So without further ado, let's get into episode number 146 of our show. Or if you are watching over on Mets Central right now, as you can see, I'm kind of doing a Mets Weekly takeover. So right now I'm doing two different podcasts at once. I know I'm an amazing multitasker, but an episode number for them, I believe, is 68. So for those of you who are coming over from Evan and Matt over at Mets Central, they wanted me to kind of fill in for this week or for this series, obviously, to recap this one. So for those of you who are watching from over there, welcome here. Make sure to come over here and chat with us in our chat over there. Make sure to follow them as well. Both links obviously are together as of right now. But as for going into the Mets right now, here's the deal. All right. I'm not going to sit here and try to say that we have so many things to talk about on the bright side, because we're going to talk about some things that are a little bit, uncomfortable to talk about. Maybe in this term of the season as of right now. But right now we're in a point where things do need to change quick before we start making some decisions. And by that meaning decisions, there were some that were made today, as we have had a few guys who were notable prospect be optioned down to AAA Syracuse today and yesterday as well. We'll get into one of them later on, but this is definitely becoming a very pivotal point as to where we are starting to see the flaws in this team, and some flaws that will hold up, some that may not. And we've talked about this possibly, throughout the entire season. I'm not trying to say we warned everybody about it, but it's really, really hard to say that this was going to continue to sustain with the way they were playing baseball for so long, and now it's coming on 3 months now. This has continued to be an issue. The runners in scoring position, we've talked about it constantly. The consistency of the overall offense has continued to be an issue, and you got to see it firsthand in this series against Philly. In Philadelphia, relatively a hitter's ballpark. The first game, they were stagnant. They got 2 home runs off of Taijuan Walker, which, in my opinion, is very easy to do because I don't think Taijuan Walker is a good pitcher. Even back when he was with the Mets, I was never the biggest fan of him. There was a very big point where I would when I sold all my stock on him. But we're not here to talk about that today. Second game, you saw what this offense was capable of. Bunch of home runs. They homered like 8 times. Tons of solo shots. The top of the lineup was killing it. Multi-home run games from Nimmo and Soto. It was great. Then you get to game 3. Disappears completely. Disappears. And this pretty much sums it up of the inconsistencies with this team. Two Cats saying it in the chat right here. 10 home runs, and they lost the series. Which, again, we've talked about it with so many different instances and departments on this team. And I have plenty of takes that may take a long time to redirect to it making sense, but I'll try to explain it as best as I can. Before I even get into running down this series, this is on the offense. It will continue to be on the offense, considering what has been built throughout this season. I know the pitching has not done well, and everyone can say that it's regressed and fell off. Whatever they want to do, whatever you want to say, go ahead and say it. But the reality here is that this offense put them in this predicament. Let me explain. When you're in tight games every single night, lots of one-run games, lots of games where you need the pitching to go to come through as much as they have needed it to, you are putting a lot of pressure on the pitching. When you put a lot of pressure on the pitching, there's a lot of high-pressure situations where every single one of these pitches that they are throwing all season, they are in a predicament where they have to throw at max effort. They have to be constantly going pitch by pitch with a lot of these situations, and they have to be perfect. When you have the need to be perfect, the pitching is going to wear itself down. They're going to continue to weigh themselves down. And guys are going to get hurt, which we're starting to see too, from the bullpen, from the starting rotation. The pitching has covered so much this year. So much. And you're seeing the offense half-assing it every day, constantly with the runners in scoring position. If they don't hit home runs, what are they good at on the offensive side? What are they good at? Not much. They really aren't. We've talked about it all year. The costly plate appearances with runners in scoring position, wasting playing appearances, the overall plate approach, plenty of chasing, staring at strikes, wasting opportunities. There's been plenty of situations, like we said, where they're just leaving so much on the table, and it leaves way too much to feel comfortable about this team doing something consistently. Because again, this was the entire ride, like we just said, of this entire season. Score 2 runs, score 11, score 1. There's different levels here. That can't be happening. Can't be. But it has continued to do this all year long. They've continued to do it all year long. Just wasting the potential ceiling of this offense that we know can be really good. Because if you look at this Mets lineup, it's good. They got talent in there. Yes, I know the bottom part of the lineup is not great right now. And that's obviously due to injuries to guys like Winker and Vientos. But what are you asking efficient games from? You're asking it from Francisco Lindor. You're asking it from Juan Soto, from Pete Alonso. 3 really good players right there. You're also asking guys like Brandon Nimmo, who's been better recently. Still needs to pick it up a little bit. The rest of the lineup, I know it's really rough in terms of depth because it's been really bad. But again, the offense has to step up. And when we talk about runners in scoring position, Soto still hasn't been good. He still hasn't been good in those situations, which we need him to be. Francisco Lindor has been in and out with those situations. Brandon Nimmo has been in and out with those situations. The only guy who's been really good is Pete Alonso. And when Pete Alonso isn't hitting, it goes by the wayside. This lineup is being way too inconsistent for a team getting paid so much money and have such high expectation. Do you even blame the pitching staff for breaking down the way that they are? This is a two-way street. Like this is a team game. Like we have talked about it before. If one department has to play at max effort all the time and carry them through the coals, what does that say about the offense? The offense put them in this situation. And that might be an out-of-the-box type of opinion that you might hear, but whose fault is it that the Mets are always losing one-run games? Whose fault is it that they're putting up goose eggs or 1 to 2, 3 runs in 2 or 3 of every series? Whose fault is that? Is it the pitching? No, it isn't. And we're seeing an offense constantly continue to waste what we know that they are capable of. I don't say this to criticize them. We've said this so many times, even when they were so many games over 500 and they were in first place. We said this the exact same time. Me, Frank, Andrew, when he was seldomly here. We're not saying this to crap all over them and just to complain. We are saying this because we know this team is capable of a lot more. We know that they are capable. We know that this offense can be efficient 9 times out of 10 with runners in scoring position because we've seen them do it before and we see the talent in this lineup. There's a few pieces to this lineup I know that are kind of on the weak side right now. But the way that they're having to fight through it here, it's not promising because it continues to snowball. It continues to get worse. And there's a reason as to why I'd like to not even blink an eye at a double-digit scoring performance like they had in Game 2. Because I know the next day, they're just going to disappear. And that's not me saying that it is a negative thing. That's saying that as, well, I have enough evidence in 3 months to say that, yeah, this offense is just going to disappear. One efficient game is not going to cover another 6 inefficient games that are crowded around it in a week. Everyone knows exactly what I'm talking about here because we continue to see these types of quality of ABs in front of you with runners in scoring position. I don't care about their win-loss record. I don't care if they're just 1 game out of first place. This has been an issue all year long. It is June 23rd now. How long until we have to just say, hey, this is what this team is? Sometimes you're going to see the offense, and sometimes you will not see it at all. And that's a really rough assessment to talk about. Really rough assessment for a, $350 million payroll? The most expensive department of the entire show here? Because like a lot of Mets fans have said, David Stearns is so cheap with the pitching. He's so cheap. He brings in all these awful arms. Well, what's expensive on this big payroll? You have the offense that seems to not be able to show up in these situations. And that's another thing coming from Daniel here, saying, how long are we going to say it's still early? They have to address it, because if you don't address it, then you're going to continue to have this thing snowball. It's an issue. Big issue. And it's not going to just magically fix itself. And we all know that there's one thing that we want to address within the offense. We all know there's one thing that we want to overhaul. Mets fans want to overhaul, at least. I don't know if the Mets want to do it as an organization. But obviously that's not seen as an option as of right now. So we'll see how they continue this. But again, I need to start to see some actual consistency from this lineup. Because again, the offense can be top 10 in all these categories all they want. But when they're not coming through when it matters, it's all just empty numbers. And that's the one thing that bugs me when I see people defend it the way that they do and blindly defend it of, oh yeah, that'll get going. It'll get going. It'll get going. We're top 10 in offense. We're top 10 in this, top 10 in that. We're hitting the ball hard. Well, you're not doing it timely enough. Or efficient enough. You guys know I've been tracking them with runners in scoring position throughout the entire year. Once again, it's not getting any better. In fact, it's been getting even worse. And again, I don't want to hear the excuse of, oh, well, we're facing really good pitching. You can't tell me that and you have World Series aspirations. You can't. It's not possible. That isn't possible at all. Because guess what you're going to face in the postseason? Good pitching. Good pitching. You're not going to face 5 starters like a few times that you're facing. You're not going to be facing Colorado Rockies starting pitchers. That's not going to be happening. So there is no excuse, especially when you have a lineup full of really good hitters like Juan Soto. Juan Soto's pretty good, right? Francisco Lindor, he's really good. Pete Alonso, everyone that's hyping him up as this home run king and the big guy, and he's having a fantastic season. Someone's going to have to step up. And Pete Alonso, granted, pushing it to the other side, obviously, Pete Alonso has been good. Recently, it hasn't been the best with runners in scoring position for him. But they're going to have to produce in this way. They're going to have to. Because there's been plenty of these games that they have lost by 1 run or 2 runs, where they have left a colony on base. A colony. And that's the reason as to why I'm not biting this pitching staff's head off yet. Because I know they're in a predicament where we can't really fully evaluate it because it's not fully healthy. You have 3 key injuries already. And those 3 key injuries are actually to your 3 highest paid arms, by the way. I don't blame the pitching for breaking down the way that it is. Is it acceptable, obviously, these pitching performances? No. But it's not the big picture of, oh, well, Stearns gave us this awful rotation. We knew it was going to fall apart eventually. When you're putting up 1 run, 2 runs, 3 runs on the board, you're going 0 for 15 with runners in scoring position. Does it really match on to the pitching is the issue? Does it really sound like that's the issue? Can you blame the pitching? Can you really? I don't think you can. I really don't. Not saying it's acceptable, because some of these pitching performances have not been good. But there's been so many instances between up-downs with these pitchers that the Mets are expecting them to hold a tie ball game, to hold a 1-run ball game every single time. And even though they have succeeded a lot doing it, there has been some blow-ups. And that's what happens when you bring up the workload. Pitchers are not built to, just throw their arm out now. This is a lot different of a game. You are relying on pitching. You are relying on the single most injured position in sports to carry you right now. And the most pathetic part about it is the fact that you're doing this with a lineup that is supposed to perform at a high level, but still isn't. Pretty pathetic. Pretty pathetic. And that is the main reason as to why they'll continue to come up short. Unless there is changes made. Who knows what those changes have to be? We still have a trade deadline in front of us, so maybe we're just overreacting. Maybe we're just not built for 162. That's another thing I've been hearing. Well, guess what? Those entire 162, they're going to start to snowball if you continue to enable this type of performance, where it's a typical night of 1 for 9 with runners in scoring position, leaving a dozen guys on base. It's not a good thing. If you're accepted of this type of play, Your standards are way too low for me. You're not worth my time. I don't know what to tell you. You don't spend $800 million on Juan Soto and just be like, it's okay. We're scoring more runs than the other team for a decent amount of time this season, so we'll be fine. Quality of wins matters. And I've said this even when it was going good and when they were in first place. Well, now they're out of first place. While they were 19 games over 500, I was still saying this. The quality of wins are going to catch up to you. I don't say this as a victory lap. I say this as a, let's fix these problems so they don't snowball. That's it. Anyways, before I run down this series, we got a lot of people in the chat, obviously. For those of you coming over from Evan and Matt's stream as well, I'm over there on Met Central. I'm kind of hijacking their stream and taking over theirs because they were unavailable to do their show tonight. So I said, say no more. I'll yap enough for the three of us. But Ray in the chat, shout out to you as well. We got Two Cats in here. Daniel, we already spoke to. The X Factor in the chat as well. NXT as well. Let's see. Justin Levine in the chat. Stanley coming through. Some of our usual viewers as well. Pete Sullivan. Looks like you're coming over from Met Central. What's going on? Our guy Ricardo is in the chat as well. One of our loyal viewers. D coming in here saying we are live LGM. Absolutely. We've got Jake in the chat. We've got plenty of you guys coming through here. For those of you watching on Met Central or you are or you're watching on my show, make sure to go follow Mets Central as well. For those of you on Mets Central, make sure to go follow Mets Weekly. Let's get some mutuals in between there. But either way, let's get into the events that went on in Philly, which was another series loss, which is now their third consecutive series loss. Was not great whatsoever. But hey, it's whatever. Moving on, right? Dust it off. Let's run down this series here in Philly. Of course, Blade Tidwell would make his second major league start. There's more on that later. We'll get into it in more depth. Jose Castillo would finish the inning after allowing one of Tidwell's runners to score, closing the book on him. 3 2/3 innings pitched, 4 hits, 2 earned runs, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts on 74 pitches. After allowing a lead-off single to start the 5th, Jose Castillo would be taken out for Jose Budo, who would retire the next 3 batters via ground out and a strikeout. Down 2-0 in the 6th. After making Zach Wheeler work early, Pete Alonso would get the Mets on the board against former Met Taijuan Walker with his 18th home run of the year. Jeff McNeil would follow that one up with a solo home run of his own, his 8th of the year, to tie the game up at 2. Jose Budo would come back out for the 6th and toss a 1-2-3 inning with 2 strikeouts. However, Reed Garrett would come on for the 7th and implode big time, allowing 4 earned runs, on 3 hits and recording 0 outs in the process. Justin Garza would pitch the rest of the 7th and 8th, but he would allow 4 runs of his own to completely take the Mets out of the game and dropping Game 1 to Philly for the Mets' 7th straight loss, knocking them out of first place in the National League East, 10-2. Game 2, Griffin Canning would make the start and was better than he has been recently, but still not great. He'd throw into the 6th, but get pulled after allowing a leadoff single for Huascar Brazaban, who would toss a much-needed bounce-back outing to strand the base runner and close the book on Canning. 5+ innings pitched, 6 hits, 3 earned runs, 1 unearned run, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts on 94 pitches. As for the offense, it was pretty much a much-needed slugfest, as we said. Brandon Nimmo would get it started in the 1st with his 14th home run of the year. Down 3-1 in the 3rd, Francisco Lindor would launch his 15th home run of the year to get the Mets within 1. Brandon Nimmo would follow it up with a solo home run of his own, his 2nd of the game, and his 15th of the year. And Juan Soto would go back-to-back with them with his 15th home run of the year to give the Mets a 4-3 lead. In the 5th, Juan Soto would homer once again, a 437-foot solo shot to extend the Mets lead to 5-3 after a one-out single by Francisco Alvarez and a two-out single by Ronnie Mauricio. Francisco Lindor would drive them in both on an opposite field, slicing two-run double that would confuse all of us for a moment, but it would extend the Mets lead to 7-4. Huascar Brazaban would come back out for the seventh and toss a scoreless inning with a strikeout and inducing a 4-6-3 double play. Jared Young would add on to the Mets lead in the eighth with a solo home run, his third of the year, to make it 8-4 New York. After a one-out walk to Beatty, followed by a single from Tyrone Taylor and a two-out walk to Brandon Nimmo to load the bases, Juan Soto would drive in a couple more runs with a two-run single, capping off a four-hit game with 4 runs batted in. Ryan Stanek would get the eighth and post a scoreless inning. In the ninth, Francisco Alvarez would launch his third home run of the year off former Met Taijuan Walker for the Mets' 7th home run of the night, and Chris Devenski would toss a scoreless ninth to finish it off and even up the series in Game 2, 11-4. And in Game 3, David Peterson would get the start, and for the first time in a long time, he did not have it. After 3 solid innings, he'd surrender 5 earned runs in the fourth, including 2 home runs that were surrendered to Kyle Schwarber and Edmundo Sosa as a very un-Peterson-like start. 4 innings pitched, 6 hits, 5 earned runs, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts, and 72 pitches. Chris Devenski would get the 5th and toss a 1-2-3 inning with a strikeout. Daniel Nunez would pitch the 6th and work around a one-out double for a scoreless inning. Tyler Zuber would make his Mets debut in the 7th and surrender 2 earned runs on 3 hits to put the Mets down 7-0. Francisco Lindor would bring in the Mets' only run in the 8th with his 16th home run of the year, snapping a 28-game winning streak for the Mets when their star shortstop homers. Tyler Zuber would come back out for the 8th and toss a 1-2-3 inning with 2 strikeouts, but the Mets would go down quietly in the 9th. No 6-run comeback this time around, dropping 2 out of 3 in Philly, 7-1. The Mets are now 46-32 on the season. They have lost 8 of their last 10, now dropping out of first place in the National League East after a series loss to the Philadelphia Phillies. So the Mets are no longer in first place anymore. That's it. Their lead in the division that was 5.5, I think it was like a week ago, has now been completely diminished, and the Mets have now fallen behind the Philadelphia Phillies. Does that mean the season is finished? No, but there is a lot of concerning factors that we are continuing to see on the field. Like we said, runners in scoring position, still an issue. We are seeing some defensive miscues still. We are seeing some pitch sequencing, some awful swing decisions as well. We're seeing the depth in the lineup obviously has been a massive issue. Daniel saying some stuff in the chat here saying that so Acuna got sent down. Is that true? He did get sent down for Travis Jankowski, actually. He was just selected from AAA Syracuse, so he's back with the team after his stint he had here in 2022. So he is back out there for the time being. Jose Siri was transferred to the 60-day IL, who is not going to be back at any time soon. But as for what we saw in this series, like we said, it's the typical, it's the typical, continuing to see what inconsistencies they have had all year, despite whatever their record is, whatever they have been playing at, or whatever pace they've been playing at, for people to just hide things behind. You're starting to see, some factors in this lineup of, if this part of the lineup isn't hitting or this guy's not producing, no one's going to. And the problem that you run into here is you have the potential with this offense, because as we saw in that second game, like we said earlier on, they were able, to produce. They gave you 11 runs, but it was still so all or nothing. It still was so inconsistent in the matter that you just continue to have these issues over and over and over again. One thing I want to point out here, X and T saying in the chat, saying, I think Nimmo leading off is bad. Lindor is a good pressure hitter. He should have more RBI opportunities, in my opinion. Listen, I think Lindor is better suited in that leadoff spot as of right now. I think he's kind of just playing through that pinky toe injury, that broken pinky toe injury right now. So I think that's probably one of the main factors as to why he is slowed down, but it seems like he's starting to hit these last few games. But with Nimmo, he's best in the 2 spot, in my opinion. I said this on Twitter last night, actually, and a lot of people were agreeing with me. Yeah, surprise, surprise. I know a lot of people just want to continue to go at me. But this one, I think I made a good point here. I know, very, very rare. But I'm asking, stop taking Nimmo out of the 2-hole. Like that's the thing. 36-year-old Starling Marte does not belong in the top 3 of this lineup in any circumstance. He doesn't. And whether he is producing or not, or whether he's doing something, whether he is doing something for this team in these situations, he does not belong in the 2-hole. In fact, right now he belongs in the bottom 3, so you can get some balance in that lineup. Because the bottom 3 is atrocious right now. Atrocious! Nimmo has done his best in the 2-hole. He's continued to do better in the 2-hole. And for some reason, they're like, oh, well, the pitcher throws with his left hand. Let's put Starling Marte at number 2. It's not how this works. And I think that's one of the main factors. Again, I've said this over and over and over again. Stop messing with the lineup. Stop making different lineups every day. Let them get some kind of consistency. I don't care if the starting pitcher that you are facing is throwing lefty, or he's a righty, or he throws with his foot. Leave Nimmo in the 2-hole. It's not that hard. It's not that hard. Keep some kind of an order in the lineup. Right now, I know you have to mix and match because of how the bottom of the lineup, how bad it has been. I get it. But however, stop taking out things that work just because there's just some stupid matchup. This is the main reason as to why I don't get it. Is because Nimmo facing a lefty, there's not many power numbers from him. There's not many power numbers from him facing left-handers. There's always been more power from him facing a right-hander. That's been how it is throughout his entire career. But he still is a plus bat against left-handed pitchers. So wouldn't you want him hitting for a little bit more contact against lefties instead of putting him batting 5th, where he's going to be in a lot of these situations where he most likely was going to have to get the big hit and he's going to have to swing the bat? Wouldn't you want him to kind of set up the big boppers of Juan Soto and Pete Alonso when he's in a predicament where he usually hits left-handed pitching on a contact sort of state as opposed to power versus right-handers? That makes no sense. And then every time when you see Starling Marte in the lineup, you never know what you're going to get from him. Again, 36 years old. He doesn't belong in this lineup, in the top 3 in this lineup. Especially with the depth you're getting from this lineup. Like I said, he belongs in the bottom 3 right now because of how uncompetitive it has been. And it's not like Marte is completely perfect that they should be batting him 2nd. They shouldn't. That makes no sense. We have gone past the situation where Starling Marte has to be in the top 3 of the lineup. It worked in 2022. It's 2025 now. I don't know why this continues to be something that this team is so enamored with. Starling Marte does not need to bat 2nd for this team to be efficient. Obviously not last night. Nimmo belongs in the 2-hole. He's been fantastic in the 2-hole. He's been a completely different player in the 2-hole. He's been awful. Oh, yeah. I mean, this year he has not had a good season. We know he hasn't. He started off so slow. He was in the cleanup position. He was batting 5th. And once he moves over to batting second, what happens? What happens? He starts producing. He starts giving you the Brandon Nimmo that we all known that we have gotten throughout his entire career when he's healthy. So what changes? What changes every time? Just because a pitcher throws with their left hand doesn't mean Starling Marte needs to bat second. No sense. Makes absolutely no sense at all. Some other things to put out there. David Peterson. Rough start for him, obviously. I'm not going to sit here and panic. I'm not going to throw him completely under the bus. We all know I've had words with Peterson for years. Rough start from him. Rough predicament. Hopefully he's able to just shake it off and we will be able to move on. However, we are in a point where we're going to need somebody to go 6 innings. Someone's going to have to do it because we're definitely running on fumes with the bullpen. And speaking of the bullpen, we did have an addition today. Richard Lovelady, I don't know if they're calling him Dickie Lovelady or Rich Lovelady. I don't know. They signed him to a minor league contract. I will do a rundown on him next episode because it was kind of spurned very, very close to showtime here for me. So we'll do a little bit of a rundown. Maybe when we get a first look from him, we'll do something like that. But that's actually someone who I wanted the Mets to pick up like 3 years ago. So great to have him 3 years later, obviously. But, you know, if you want a quick rundown here, plus fastball, plus slider. He knows how to locate, but there's some inconsistencies there. He's had a really, really good season in the minor leagues in AAA this year so far. So that's probably what attached them to him. So we'll see what happens there. We'll see what happens with Jose Castillo, who I believe is out of minor league options. We'll see how they form in this bullpen. We know that this bullpen is not going to be exactly the same as what it was on opening day. It's not, obviously compared to the injuries here, but they will eventually figure it out. And yes, Lovelady has been activated tonight, and they ended up optioning Tyler Zuber to AAA Syracuse. So for those of you wondering, if he's going to pitch for us, yes, he will pitch for us. And he was signed to a major league contract. So maybe he's going to stick around for a long time. Who knows? But the Mets get another lefty who maybe can be reliable. Who knows? We'll figure it out. But there's some good stuff there. So he does have some good stuff. We'll see how he utilizes it. We'll do a little bit more of a breakdown of it, like I said. 2 plus good pitches. Let's just say that. So there's definitely some there. Let's see if they can tap into it and continue what he was doing in AAA. But there was plenty of transactions that went on this week, obviously. And there was a lot that went on with the young guys, and we will get into that. But I do want to talk about one guy beforehand, and that being Blade Tidwell, who made his second major league start against the Phillies in Game 1 of this series. Now, obviously, the Mets have been a little hesitant, very hesitant, to bring up some of their young pitchers, given the workload that has kind of been put into this regimen of starting pitching. I think that that's one thing as to why they're so hesitant. But Nolan McLean, Jonah Tong, Brandon Sproat, guys like that. But Blade Tidwell has gotten the look first, and he was somebody who was drafted first out of all of them, so it made sense. But Tidwell has been put into a situation where obviously the Mets just need an arm, and he was just optioned down to AAA after that start, of course. So I do want to do a little bit of a rundown of that second start that he had, because compared to what we saw in that first start that he had against the Cardinals, what was it, about a few weeks ago, he was really struggling, obviously, to get the ball over the plate. I don't know, was he able to get through 3 innings? I don't know. There was a let me check. So yeah, the first start he went as long as he did in this start. So adjusting to the major league workload, I think that's the main reason as to why they had him on that pitch limit. I think they took him out after 70-ish pitches. But this was a lot sharper blade, a lot sharper of a start. We saw him top 99 miles an hour a few times in this start, obviously. 9 swings and misses, 74 pitches, like I said. A lot more pitches in the strike zone. He had 47.6% of his pitches in the strike zone in his major league debut against St. Louis, 52.7% thrown in the strike zone in this start. 4 strikeouts, 3 walks, which kind of got to him towards the end. He was losing his control a little bit. But we all already know that the stuff is there. And as you're seeing it completely grayed out in Stuff Plus, and this is, this is a metric of basically pitched characteristics from a certain release point that he throws from, plus fastball, plus sweeper, plus slider, plus sinker, plus cutter, plus changeup. So you have 6 plus pitches from a guy like Blade Tidwell. They're not elite, but they're all plus pitches. The fastball is basically the main featured, of course. He used over 40% of the time. 18 inches of induced vertical break, which is great fastball shape. He throws from a little bit of a lower arm angle, like we have seen from him, which, hovers the VAA, which you want hovering around 4, but 5.5 degrees is fine given the certain release point. Obviously, he also has a little bit more of the deeper arsenal, of course, the sweeper, which he likes to kind of throw to the arm side, obviously to left-handed hitters. We have his slider, which is a hard slider that I'm pretty sure he reached 90 with in this start as well, which can also be characterized as a cutter too. As you can see, he has kind of a cutter here. I don't know if they're just kind of being different simplified. Probably are. Yeah, probably are, but there are a little bit similar characteristics between the slider and cutter, which is a good thing, obviously. And then he also has the sinker ball, which he was able to induce 5 ground balls last night. So that was the other night, that was good. But obviously him being optioned out to AAA Syracuse, this is not the last we have seen from him. But we definitely saw a little bit more of improvement, a lot more competitive pitches. And we know that the Mets, as of right now, in the trajectory that they were going with guys like Blade Tidwell or, guys like, Paul Blackburn in this rotation, they were definitely calling on some reinforcements with the injuries they have had. And you're definitely going to see more of Blade Tidwell. But I'm glad to see them taking this slow and not just completely throwing it into the fire. And I think that it was a very encouraging start from a guy like Blade Tidwell, who has had struggles with finding the strike zone. The stuff is there. Like we've talked about it before with Blade Tidwell. The stuff is there. It's all about him throwing a good amount of strikes. He has to throw strikes. And when he doesn't throw strikes, things can get a little bit messy, and you're going to end up having these 4-inning outings, which is the main reason as to why a lot of people have had concerns about him being a sustained starter. We did see some adjustments be made. We know that he had that little over-the-head hitch wind-up thing with a lot of movement, like just a lot of movement on the mound before he released the ball. We knew that was something that people were pointing out, that old-fashioned over-the-head, come forward, small extension and release. So that's a lot of movement he had on the mound. And maybe that was a factor as to why he wasn't able to throw strikes in his major league debut. But it looked like he kind of got rid of that in his second start. There was a little bit different of a motion there where he's a little bit more simplified, which I think really did help him throw more strikes. I do think it did. There's still a lot of things that he needs to learn, obviously. Some pitch sequencing is a little bit in and out, obviously. A little bit less of the fastball, I'd say, sometimes when he's struggling when he's struggling ahead in the, when he's ahead in the count. Go a little bit more of the secondary stuff because, again, like we said, the secondary stuff is good. Very good. It was promising. It was a promising outing. Did he run out of gas at the end there? Probably. Probably did. Was there some defense behind him that probably should have been better to get him more timely outs? Probably. But again, it's really just all about the quality of the outing, or just the overall way that his stuff looks, the overall, pitch sequencing, the overall quality of stuff. But we've talked about the main concern of his stuff not being able to maintain into the middle innings. And it is something that I think does need to be established, that a lot more refined. And he even said it. He said, it was a lot better than my debut. A lot better than my debut. But there is still a lot more to work on. And he knows. He does know. And obviously he is taking the option down to AAA. And, he's taking it, as the trooper he should. He realizes that this team likes him. They like his stuff, and obviously they do. Throws pretty hard, great secondary stuff. But he's just got to put it together. He's got to locate. And Blade Tidwell, as of right now, he's 24 years old. There's still a lot for him to learn. So I was very, very encouraged. And to see that type of stuff come from a guy like Blade Tidwell, when, he's not even regarded as one of their best pitching prospects, it definitely gives you some of the promise of the young arms that probably could do something for you down the line. Some of these guys. Ricardo's saying he needs a third put-away pitch. I think he has that. It's really just more of him just locating. He needs to throw strikes. That's literally it. Throw strikes. Because the stuff will play. It 100% will play. And like I said, we're pulling up this graphic here. 6+ pitches. Use the weapons. Use the blades. Blade? He's got it. He's got the stuff. It's all just about maintaining the consistency to throw strikes. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much all it. If the Mets turned that double play, he would have left the game with 0 runs given up. Most likely, he probably could have started the 5th. So again, it's really all just about the workload that they are putting. I'm fine with them taking him out that early and not just having him, snowball through it. This is some of his first tastes in the major leagues. He will get better. He will develop. I asked you guys in the chat if you see Blade Tidwell as a future piece to the Mets rotation. 28% of you say yes, and 28% of you are saying I have no idea. But 44% of you are saying no, which I understand the reason as to why you say that. Because obviously, at face value, they haven't been great outings for him. No one's denying that. I don't think anybody is. But I think he showed the tools that he has to possibly be a major league pitcher. He's just going to have to apply them. And if he doesn't, he's going to end up like a certain someone that I won't mention because I know it triggers a lot of people. He's going to end up like a certain someone who has a lot of good stuff, but can't figure it out, can't put it all together. I'm sure you guys know exactly who I'm talking about in that predicament. If you don't think so, who knows? Brian's saying, I can see Blade be a solid 3 to 5 guy. I think that's what scouts have been seeing of like the ceiling of a mid-rotation guy, maybe a back-end piece if he can't put it all together. And they're going to take this thing slow. They're not going to sit here and rush it and say he's the only asset we have. The Mets are going to make sure that, he's comfortable in that situation to develop into a starter. They're not going to just completely burn out his arm. That you saw this a lot where they were putting Christian Scott on limits with his elbow concerns and his arm concerns. And then we also saw him undergo Tommy John surgery. There was a reason why he had that limit. There's a reason why they pulled the plug so early on him so many times. So, adjusting to that major league starter workload, it's a lot different now. It's a lot different to, the time where we're talking about Matt Harvey and Jacob deGrom and Noah Syndergaard. It's a lot different. This is definitely a workload that allows a lot more effort. Let's just say as compared to what it was maybe even 10 years ago. It's a lot different now. Hitters are more advanced. Pitchers are more advanced. Like we always talk about, it's a game of adjustments. You're going to have to adjust to this era of, maybe the workload, it's going to have to be split among different guys. That's it. Nobody is that head case. Who knows? Who knows, man? You never know. But so far, I thought we have seen some promise from Blade Tidwell, but we're also seeing some things that he needs to work on. No one's a finished product when they get to the major leagues because they need that major league experience in order to develop and grow from it. And that's what you're seeing from a guy like Blade Tidwell. Listen, I don't know if Blade Tidwell is going to end up panning out. I don't know if he will. Who knows? But we'll see if they can find something. If he can apply it, because the talent's definitely there. I think we all can agree that he's got talent. We'll see. We'll see how they apply it. We'll see how Tidwell pans out. And if not, it's on to the next. And speaking of the next, Stanley's saying that, McLean and Sproat need to be called up. I give it a little time. Personally, Sproat's been a little inconsistent in AAA. Let's just say that. He's had some really, really good outings, but then he's also had some really bad. The strikeout stuff has been a little bit down. McLean, I wouldn't rule out seeing him this year. I wouldn't rule it out. We'll definitely get to see McLean. Tong is going to take a little bit more time. I do think that it's going to take a little bit more time. McLean, who knows? Sproat, going to have to see a little bit more of the consistency, but Blade Tidwell's definitely on the list to continue to keep trying and continue to have these good outings, because there was definitely improvement from that first start. I don't think anybody can deny that. It was better. Whether you're talking about it results-wise or just talking about the sharpness of his stuff, he was throwing more strikes. He was a lot more efficient with his pitch count. And he was able to expand the zone as well. He was getting a lot more chases than he was able to do in that first start as well. So as long as we see improvement, then maybe we can move along. And I understand, people being hesitant about the future of a guy like Blade Tidwell when you saw what you saw on the mound. Because right now, at face value, he's got an earned run average over 9, almost 10. So it's like, hey, well, is this good or not? The way that we break this thing down, he's got to finish. He's got to finish off some stuff. But the tools are definitely there. So I'm definitely excited to see what we can see from Blade Tidwell going forward. And if he ends up getting called up again, can't wait. Can't wait to see how he does find a way to improve in his third start. That's really all that we are looking for from the kid. And obviously throwing them into a fire of a team that has not been hitting or pitching or doing much well this last 10 games, it probably could get a little bit of annoying seeing a guy go out in the fourth inning. But that's just kind of the best way to handle this type of thing with the workload of young players that are not used to it yet. And hopefully they eventually do get used to it. And you're in a predicament where some of these pitchers can pitch over, 150 innings this season. Yes, Marcus, no Frank today. It's just me. I'm going solo. And speaking of Frank, let's talk about his guy with some rough timing. He didn't get to talk about his guy in Francisco Alvarez, who, for those of you who have not seen the news in the last 48 hours, Francisco Alvarez was optioned down to AAA Syracuse after the struggles that he has had this season since coming back from injury. Hayden Sanger was recalled from AAA Syracuse to take his place. Luis Torrens seems to be the guy who's going to be playing a lot more, obviously. He's going to be catcher numero uno as of right now. But Francisco Alvarez is now going to spend some time in AAA, along with Luis Angel Acuna, who I think we all kind of saw eventually that was going to happen, only because of the role that he was playing on this team. Like we all knew that his diminished playing time was getting very noticeable or unnoticeable because we weren't seeing him on the field. But I do want to talk a little bit about Francisco Alvarez. We've talked about him multiple times before, obviously, of what has been very, very noticeable with Francisco Alvarez from the hitting standpoint, from the defensive standpoint, but this is a much needed reset. Obviously, a 91 weighted runs created plus, not great, below average in 138 plate appearances. He may be walking a little bit more, but he's striking out a lot. Only 6 extra base hits from somebody who was expected to be this middle of the order type of catcher, which is a very rare entity these days. He's got 3 home runs, 11 RBIs, whatever. However, he is hitting the ball harder than any time that he has in this career. What's the difference? It's the quality of contact that we are seeing from him. And I have talked about this so many times before of my concerns with his quality of contact, where I feel like he's leaving potential damage on the table, like a cookie down the middle. He's, lightly lifting it to center field or lightly lifting it to right field. And we're really starting to see the factor of him going for more contact as the power hitter that we know that he can, and he's really struggling with it. Since that entire season where he hit 25 home runs as a rookie catcher, 35.9% of those 309 batted balls have been pulled line drives and fly balls, which generates the most power of a power hitter. It was 49.2% in 2023, which was his 25 home run season. We're just seeing him use the opposite field way too much. And even though using the opposite field could possibly make you into a balanced hitter or whatever, we're expecting more power from a guy like Francisco Alvarez. And we're not seeing it whatsoever. Not finding the barrel of the bat. He's in the first percentile in whiff percentage. He's in the 39th percentile in chase rate. And one of the main factors is obviously his 41.2% whiff rate and his 246 weighted on base average versus breaking balls, which has been just basically spammed to him for the entirety of this season. I mean, why even throw him a fastball at this point? And then there's also this factor here where Torrens makes pitchers better, at least in a small sample size. We're also seeing defensively plenty of defensive miscues from Alvarez. Obviously, that play in Atlanta that basically cost them the game, where he's throwing behind the runner on a wild pitch that got to him, and he had plenty of time to throw him out, didn't throw to third. We're seeing the blocking. The blocking has been atrocious. And most of that has to do with, they talk about it on the broadcast all the time, something that we know that Keith Hernandez doesn't like a lot, where he's kind of on one knee and he's very, very slow to block, which makes sense. But the blocking has not been there. The thing is, he does have these tools to be good defensively. He has one of the fastest pop times to second base, 1.88 seconds, which is in the 98th percentile. He has a +3 caught stealing. Like he can throw runners out. The blocking needs to get better. The framing has regressed from last year. It's been very concerning from both sides, from Francisco Alvarez. And I think that there's one thing that does need to be made clear here. I don't know if this is coming from the rational fan or the irrational fan, but here's how I look at this, okay? I have been very frustrated with what I've seen from Francisco Alvarez, and my expectations definitely are nowhere met. However, I think it does get a little misconstrued to a lot of these Mets fans who kind of gatekeep Alvarez and say he's very young. Don't go after him and don't go after him. To me, it's more of just the honest criticism. That's kind of what I've continued to give with Francisco Alvarez, is just the honest criticism of, his lack of production from both sides. But I want to make something really, really clear. No one is giving up on Francisco Alvarez. No one is saying that he's a bust. No one is saying that his career trajectory is going to the Gary Sanchez trajectory. No one's saying that. He's 23 years old. We're way too early before we start making those conclusions. However, what we have seen, there's really not much to be happy about. There really isn't. You can't sit here and say that he hasn't been disappointing. And, I don't blame him for these growing pains. I don't, because we typically don't see a catcher at 21 years old come up here. That rarely ever happens. So there was going to be growing pains. There was. However, he needs a reset in AAA. It had to happen. Had to. And I know a lot of people will also argue to say that, hey, he hit a home run. Why did you send him down? I say this in the nicest way possible, okay? Or probably not. Who knows how I come off. I say this with love, okay? Not really. Taijuan Walker sucks. Taijuan Walker has always been bad. Even for his time on the Mets, he's always been bad. It's not hard to identify a cookie with that guy. I'm pretty sure Francisco Alvarez has homered off of him before that even happened. Before. So, again, there's plenty of time. Brian's saying here, I don't know if I'd call it a breakout season, but Cal Raleigh is having a season of a lifetime, and he's 28 years old. Alvy has plenty of time, and that's what I agree with. But obviously, he's not at that point where we want him to be at this moment. Mark is saying that Mendoza said Alvarez needs to work on his receiving and blocking, and that's true. That is true. The framing has gone down. The blocking hasn't been good. Good to know he agrees with a lot of fans on this. Good. And we've said it for multiple weeks now. He has to be sent down to AAA Syracuse. It's the only way. Because if you continue to put him out there as he continues to struggle, it's not going to get better. It isn't going to get better. And this is a lot different of a situation to Brett Beatty. But also, we saw Brett Beatty homer off of Zach Wheeler, a actual good pitcher, not Taijuan Walker, who sucks. And they sent him down to AAA Syracuse the next day. Then he comes back here and he starts hitting. So could that happen for Alvarez too? Sure. Who knows? Who knows? But this version of Francisco Alvarez, no thank you. No thanks. You can go down to AAA Syracuse. And you got to figure something out. He needs a reset. They got to figure it out somewhat. And I know there's somebody that people want to throw under the bus here for his lack of production offensively. I know. And even people are saying it in the chat right now. However, there's a lot of factors that go into this. And trust me, I am the biggest hater of the certain person that everybody wants to throw under the bus. I have been his biggest critic since day one. Before I was hating, I despised that guy before anybody thought it was cool. And you'd know by the history of our show of how big of a fraud I think that guy is. However, there was plenty of other factors that went into things as to why he needed to go down in AAA. I think that it's more of a defensive factor here, even though the hitting has not been great. Offensively, he has not been great at all. Career low in OPS. So I don't know. Maybe changing your entire approach is stupid when, you could maximize the actual skill that the guy has, where he was a power first prospect. But what the fuck do I know? You know, the type of hitter he's turned into, I hate it. I hate the type of hitter that he is now. And it disgusts me. But on the defensive side, it's also been an issue too. Mentally, he's just not there. We're not seeing the confidence that we saw in 2023. We're not seeing that type of guy. We're just not. And a home run off of Taijuan Walker, that doesn't change anything. It won't, and it shouldn't. It's been a rough go for him. And there's plenty of people that will come to his rescue saying that he's injured. He's banged up. He's had too many injuries, and that's why he's just not showing the full potential. Okay, well, if he's injured, why is he playing? Or why is he playing in the major leagues? He should be in AAA. That's where he belongs. No one's giving up on him, and I will say this again. No one's giving up on Francisco Alvarez. We believe that he is the catcher of the future on this team. We believe that he can be. We know what he's capable of because we've already seen it. That's the sad part about it. At 21 years old, we already saw it. Shouldn't be getting worse. It needs to be getting better. And that's the problem that I think gets some people amped up from both sides of the ball. Just has not been a good season for him. And especially when you're looking at a guy like Luis Torrens, who I know his bat has cooled down recently. But defense has to take the priority, and Luis Torrens is way better at it than him. And somebody in the chat earlier said that you know, with Torrens, a lot of the pitchers throw better with him behind the plate. And it makes sense. He's got a ridiculous arm. He gets rid of the ball pretty quick as well. And he's also framing better than a guy like Francisco Alvarez this year. The blocking, it's iffy. Very, very iffy. However, he's proven a lot more this year that he can be somewhat productive. I don't think anybody is really saying that Luis Torrens is the everyday catcher of this team and the future of this team. No, they're saying that he is a better option than Francisco Alvarez right now, which I think we all can agree is true. I'm not declaring Luis Torrens a star, but I know that he is an important part of this team, and he needs to be playing more. The only way for that to happen and to not stunt the development of a young player like Francisco Alvarez is to have Luis Torrens starting every day and having Alvarez in AAA. And when I say that Alvarez should be in AAA, I don't mean it as he belongs there. Because again, the AAA scene, we've talked about a lot of 4A players, something that we've discussed a lot with Beatty before, where he's the 4A player. He's good, too good for AAA, but he's not good enough for the majors. He's in the middle. Well, with this certain position, 23 is like 17. Age in catchers. Takes a while for them to break out. Takes a long time. Which is why the Mets were hesitant to call him up in the first place. Why they signed Omar Narvaez initially. Because there's a lot to learn that a young catcher needs to learn. It's really hard to develop them. It's a really rough development. And it's better for him to be in AAA right now. And even if you want to talk about it from track record, I'm pretty sure Francisco Alvarez really has not had that much time in AAA. I'm pretty sure. Let's see. He has played like 50 AAA games. So it's not like he has had a monstrous career there. I'm not saying he needs to be in AAA for an entire season. But again, there's still some things that he needs to work out. And the only way he can do that is playing every single day and not in the major leagues. Because right now, he's been kind of costing this team. My good buddy Ibby in here saying, are you trapped in Jeff McNeil's bunker? Blink twice if you need help. I'm not. These shelves are empty because I will not be living in this place very longer. So I had to clean out a lot of stuff in this room that I'm in. So yes, it does look empty and it looks barren, but you'll only see that for a few more episodes, and then you will see a new backdrop in a new setting. So either way. Speaking of some updates and some stuff as well, let's get into the injury report. Now, Frank is not here, of course, so I'm going to have to fill in. Mets starting pitcher Sean Manaea will likely either need 1 or 2 more rehab outings for AAA Syracuse, which could line him up to a return to the Mets rotation during the first week of July. After a successful outing earlier this week, the 33-year-old southpaw is inching closer to making his long-awaited return after being sidelined since the beginning of March due to a right oblique strain. Mets reliever Max Kranick has been diagnosed with a minor flexor strain in his arm after further imaging. The 27-year-old right-hander will be shut down for 3 to 4 weeks and then be reassessed to progress to a throwing program. Kranick was placed on the 15-day injured list last Sunday after being unavailable for the entire series in Atlanta. Mets reliever Brooks Raley made his second rehab appearance for Low A Port St. Lucie on Tuesday, tossing another scoreless inning with 2 strikeouts on 15 pitches, with some time in July as a strong possibility to return to the Mets bullpen. Raley continues to recover from Tommy John surgery that included an internal brace procedure on his left elbow back in April of last year. We also did get a little bit of an update from Kodai Senga. Nothing as substantial as you'd expect. And obviously that graphic was made yesterday, so I was not able to update it. But he was throwing at Citi Field today. So it looks like, he's just doing some upright throwing because it was a calf injury, correct? Hamstring, calf last year. He said that he's feeling great and a rehab assignment could be on the horizon. So we'll see how long that does take. Obviously, they avoided the best that they could, with it being the lowest level of severity for his hamstring injury after it looked like it was rough for when he did end up going down the way that he did. But, however, we still are in a situation where, this rotation needs to get its arms back very, very quick. So we'll see how long that's going to happen. Sean Manaea, like we just said, it'll be huge to have him back. So hopefully after that start, everything goes well. And then he can come back in the first week of July, which is very, very close to here. So adding him back into the rotation is going to be huge for this team, especially when you have the other guy who is rehabbing, who really, really struggled the way that he did. We also saw Jesse Winker running the bases today. Some updates on there. Like I said, Siri transferred to the 60-day IL as one of the corresponding moves for a guy like Travis Jankowski. Richard Lovelady, like I said, was just signed to a major league contract. He was just activated. Justin Garza, option to AAA. Blake Tidwell, obviously. Luis Angel Acuna was also optioned down to AAA. Some promotions as well. Colin Houck, our first round pick 2 years ago out of high school, was promoted to High A Brooklyn. And then in corresponding moves as well, Carson Benj, not me, by the way, we have the same first name, not me. Carson Benj, our first round pick last year, and then Jacob Reimer as well. Both of them have been promoted to Double-A Binghamton. So that's very, very exciting to see to the upper levels of Carson Benj. Maybe he's somebody who you see down the line in the majors next year. Who knows? But he has been phenomenal at the high A level for the Brooklyn Cyclones, and he was gifted with a promotion, and he also will be participating in the Futures game during the All-Star break, which is in a few weeks. So definitely exciting on the Carson Benj front of things. But as for me, Carson, that's me, Carson from Mets Weekly, let's get into the segment that everybody loves, which is studs and duds. One player in this series that was phenomenal, one that was not. Now, obviously a little bit of a scattered sample of games that we saw here in Philly, but I think we can figure this out the best way that we can. And I believe that I'm going to give the stud of this series to the guy who seems to be the only one that has been consistent throughout June so far, and that being Brandon Nimmo. The 2-home run game in the second game, along with Juan Soto. He was 6 for 12 in this series. He had multi-hit games in every single one of them. Seemed to be the only one that was open. Again, seemed to be the only one who was consistently showing up throughout this entire season. Series, excuse me, not the entire season. But again, keep him in the 2-hole. That's all I ask. Keep him in the 2-hole. He's been his best self in the 2-hole. He's in the 2-hole here tonight, so that's good. Glad to see it. But don't just do it because of a right-handed hitter. Like I said, in that full rant that I went on early on, that should have not have gone as long as it did. But, as for Nimmo, great series from him. You can put Juan Soto there too. But he, in terms of the consistency, I'd put Nimmo in the stud category because all 3 games, it seemed like he was contributing. As for the duds, I got to go with Reed Garrett here. What was that in that first game? Just a complete blow up. Was not missing bats whatsoever. Not the Reed Garrett that we are used to. A really rough outing for him, and hopefully he can have a bounce back outing coming into this series with the Braves. But that was a terrible outing. He did not record a single out. He was not missing bats. He was missing spots. I'm pretty sure he walked somebody in there. Just a terrible outing as well. And then Justin Garza, also we can put onto that list. David Peterson, you can put him there, but I'm not going to completely throw him under the bus because, again, that's his first rough start in 800. So, he's been very, very consistent for this team for multiple years now. So I'm not going to completely throw him under the bus there, but was not a good outing for him. Canning was not fantastic either, but he was able to fight through what he was able to fight through. There was plenty of guys you can put out there in that dud category because this was not a well played out series. Let's just say that. But either way, that's what I would say for the studs and duds. Nimmo in the stud category, Reed Garrett in the dud category as your number one in each of those quadrants. But now as for going forward, looking into the future, let's get into this upcoming series here, which is going to start in about an hour. Let's get into this upcoming series versus the Mets, against the Mets and the Braves, a 4-game set at Citi Field. And here are your probables for this series. Game 1 tonight. It will be Paul Blackburn. He will be looking to provide some length this time against Atlanta. He'll be facing the right-hander Spencer Schwellenbach tonight. First pitch will be tonight, like I said, at 7:10 p.m. Eastern Time on Pix 11. Game 2 will go to Frankie Montas, who will make his Mets debut off the injured list after a very tedious rehab campaign. He'll face Spencer Strider. First pitch is tomorrow night at 7:10 Eastern Time on SNY. Game 3 will go to Clay Holmes, hoping to bounce back from his struggles in Atlanta. He'll go up against the 20-year-old, yes, 20-year-old right-hander Dadier Fuentes. I think I said that right. First pitch is Wednesday night at 7:10 p.m. Eastern Time on SNY. And the series finale will go to Griffin Canning. He'll face the 29-year-old right-hander Grant Holmes. First pitch is Thursday night at 7:10 p.m. Eastern Time on SNY. So definitely a opportunity to put some space between the Mets and the Braves at very best. They will have a 14-game gap in between them. Now, they just played the Braves in Atlanta, and they were embarrassed out of that building. We've seen the Mets struggle in Atlanta before. It's kind of their trademark. However, let's try to be better than they were in Atlanta. They were swept out of the building. Let's actually beat this Atlanta team, because even though Atlanta is below 500, Atlanta's not having a good season, they still have talent on that team. And I think a lot of Mets fans went into that series in Atlanta thinking, oh, well, we got this. The Braves aren't that good. Not so fast. Not so fast. Do not underestimate the Atlanta Braves at any time, whether they are 50 games under 500 or 5 games under 500. Do not underestimate them one bit. We know that Ronald Acuna Jr. is red hot from that leadoff spot ever since coming back from that injury that he had. Matt Olson has always been a killer against the Mets. Same goes for Austin Riley, who is not having the best season, but however, still has been really good against the Mets. Like I said, Ronald Acuna Jr., Michael Harris, Ozzie Albies, Nick Allen was quite a pest, if I do recall, in that series they had in Atlanta. So not fantastic. We know Drake Baldwin has also been really good off of their bench this year too. But they also have plenty of factors here where, you have hitters that are really, really struggling. So don't make mistakes. If you make mistakes, they are going to catch it, and they are going to find a way to hurt you. We know there is a possibility of that happening every time. Like we said, guys like Marcell Ozuna, who's not having the best season, but he still can completely destroy you at any point. So again, lots of things to look out for in this series. We know Spencer Schwellenbach, the Mets tagged him a little bit in the last outing that they had, but they're definitely going to have to find a way to find into that consistency, and they're going to have to cash runners in. They're getting plenty of opportunities with runners in scoring position, and they have to capitalize. Enough is enough. It really is. It's enough. Spencer Strider, we know the Mets have had success and they've had their failures against him, so we'll see what happens there. Dadier Fuentes, I don't know much about him. I know he just made his debut. He's 20 years old, so don't get completely bodied by a 20-year-old. That would be awesome. A guy who can't even drink yet legally in this country. That'd be awesome. And then Grant Holmes, I know, has had some success. Some really, really good outings, and then had some really, really bad ones. I think he had one outing this year where he struck out like 15 batters. He was just completely rolling. So they definitely still have their work cut out for him, no matter if the Braves are good or not. This is still a team that the Mets really struggle with, and they will continue to struggle with until they get that monkey off their back. Well, again, we said this last episode after they got swept in Atlanta, just because Francisco Lindor had that big swing in Atlanta doesn't mean the Braves just completely disappear. Doesn't mean that whatsoever. And that should not be the mentality. And I'm hoping that they can split this series. 3 out of 4 would be great. 4 out of 4 would be great, but don't lose the series. That's all I ask. That is all I ask from this team. going into this series in front of your home crowd. Don't stink it up the way that they did that last home series against the Rays, which was just, it was an eyesore, a complete eyesore. Now, for those of you going into this game, I am being told that it is very hot there. So we'll see if the ball travels or not. But Explosive saying, it looks like he's at the game, saying it is so hot and humid out here. Feel like throwing up outside. Wow. Okay. I'm obviously inside. Have not been outside today. Probably won't be outside at all this tonight because it's pretty hot out. But definitely some weather conditions that'll probably spark some rough times for the fans out there. That might be a little bit in and out. But hey, it's whatever. You get your hot days in the summer. That happens. But as for the lineup tonight, for those of you just previewing into this series, leading off Lindor. Second is Nimmo, Soto, Alonso, McNeil, Taylor, Young, Torrens, Beatty, and then the starting pitcher, of course, Blackburn tonight. So I do want to get into a few comments in here, and then I will get out of here because, again, it's just me. I'm not going to just run this 1 to 2 hours because I'm the only voice, and I would like to keep my voice for the rest of the week. However, Stanley saying that it's good to have Acuna and Alvarez sent to the minors. Absolutely, they were definitely struggling, like we said earlier on. Early on, in this show, they were struggling, and they definitely needed a reset in that regard. Let's see. What else did we see? Okay, another comment here from M. Easy saying, in Game 2 against the Phillies was the first time I saw them crushing bad breaking balls. That's another thing. Pulling fly balls, doing the best amount of damage. They got to do it more consistently because we know that they are capable of it. They really are. Another interesting one from Doug saying that nobody even mentions how soft this team is. Pete constantly getting drills. See how the Padres reacted to their guy getting hit. I've talked about this before a lot. We've seen Pete Alonso get hit a lot in his career. I'm pretty sure all of the homegrown guys, the big four there of this last decade, Nimmo, Pete Alonso, Michael Conforto, and Jeff McNeil are all like the top 4 in hit by pitches in franchise history. I'm pretty sure they get hit a lot. No, I've talked about this before of, you do need to defend your top guy. I would not be upset to see anybody come out of the dugout to try and defend him and go out there. Do I think that this entire team is soft? Who knows? I have no idea. I have no idea if they are. I don't know what's going on in that locker room, but there is definitely times where I think that the Mets should try and fight back, try to retaliate, not something of just like purposely injure people. But again, if there is a message that needs to be sent, I'm all for it. I'm all for it, especially with you have these star players. When you have your stars, if someone's throwing at your star, you have to send a message to say that that's not okay. That's one of the things that I think gets a little bit turned over of, okay, well, prove it on the field. But when it continues to happen like that, there's going to start to be some hard feelings. So that's definitely something that, again, I've talked about many, many times before of defending your own teammate. I don't know if there's any hockey fans out there, but when your star gets, checked up against the boards, your star gets tripped up or something, you have those enforcers to go after and defend their teammate. And they have every right to do so because you have to make sure that doesn't happen because you need that star in the lineup. And we have seen Pete Alonso miss some time because of hit by pitches. We've seen plenty of guys actually miss some time. Remember Marte in 2022? Jeff McNeil got hit, what was it, last year? And he missed a lot of time. Lindor just got hit on the pinky toe, and maybe that's slowing him down a little bit right now. That's something that, a lot of other teams shouldn't be getting away with if it constantly happens. Because if it continues to happen, it's just going to continue to happen if you don't do something about it. It's what they got to do. I see a lot of people in the chat also saying stuff about the trade deadline too. We'll leave that to later on discussions. But I think I'm going to wrap it up here. So obviously we usually go the 2 hours, but it's just me here. So I can only go a 90 minutes solo because my voice has to take some breaks. But my voice didn't take a single break throughout this entire episode. So I guess applaud for me. I don't know. But either way, shout out to everybody who came through here, as well as some of you guys coming over from Mets Central. Make sure to come over here, subscribe to our channel. For those of you here on Mets Weekly, go over to Mets Central as well. Check them out. They usually do streams just like us after every single series. And usually we go live in between each series on here. Thank you guys so much for watching, listening. We hope you guys enjoyed the conversation, especially in the live chat as well. For those of you listening or watching on playback, you want to join the conversation live in the future, like I said, make sure to subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel and turn on post notifications to not miss when we go live. Make sure to follow Mets Weekly on X and on TikTok, which mainly features my co-host Frank's Mets Frankly post-game, which is his instant post-game reactions after every regular season game. Follow all of us individually, including my co-hosts who are not here today. And we'll send you out to Citi Field. The Mets are back home for a 4-game set against the Atlanta Braves. Let's hope we can get some revenge there. So everybody in here, everybody watching on playback, make sure to enjoy the game. Let's hope to get back in the win column. That would be awesome. And hopefully they can pick up from the skid that they have had these last 10 games, which have not been pretty. But either way, let's go Mets, and we will see you guys next time.